early morning. What happened? What happened from week 7, which was my last video, and week 13? I've got some explanations for you. The good ones, yeah. 2 reasons, basically. Well, would have been week 8 for me. I had my first prenatal visit with my midwife, and of course, what everyone does, everyone wants to know, is when is the due date. So we did that. We went over my charts because I was charting my cycle before getting pregnant, and so we found a due date. But since the beginning, I had been calculating what week I was at according to conception time or ovulation time. But that's not the way you guys do it here. You guys calculate from the first day of the menstrual cycle. So I'm actually 2 weeks more than what I thought. So I hope you're not too confused. We're gonna get more into that. This video is about due dates and why it's so important and how you can get confused and how it's just a number, it's just an estimation, and it's not the whole almighty law. So my reason number 2 of having that big gap between week 7 video and week 13 this week is, so the first thing is that I thought I was at week 8, but I was actually at week 10. And then these last 2 weeks, I've just been lazy, you know, end of the first trimester and just getting over that, I'm just so tired and I feel like shit. Yeah, so those are my excuses. I hope you accept them. Anyways, you don't have a choice because this is it. So let's get into due dates. First of all, here in the US and in Canada also, due dates are always calculated starting from the first day of your last menstrual cycle. So whenever that day is, they go ahead in the calendar 40 weeks, and then they give you whatever that date is, that's your due date. In Europe, and probably elsewhere in the world, I don't know, it's calculated from the day of your ovulation. You go ahead 38 weeks into the calendar year, and that will be your due date. And that's the way it is. So that's what I was following, and that's why there's this confusion. But I'm gonna get back on the, everyone's normal system, and so now everyone will understand. So I am now currently 13 weeks pregnant, just over that hump of the first trimester. Yay! Yay! So like, what's the difference between using the 40-week system and the 38-week system? If you are the typical woman who has a 28-day cycle and ovulation at day 14, right split in the middle, then for you it doesn't really matter if you use the 40 weeks or the 38 weeks system. But as we all know, or if you don't know, then I'm telling you, most women are not the typical woman. Most women that I talk to have more of a 30-day cycle, 35-day cycle, and the day of our ovulation is so variable because life can be stressful. You can get sick. Someone around you that you're taking care of can get sick, like your children, and any stress like that will push back your ovulation some. But that makes a huge difference. And so if in the 40-week system of calculating due dates, they're just assuming that 2 weeks later, 14 days later, you had your ovulation. But it's not always the case. It could be 3 days later. It could be a week later. So how this changes and how this is relevant to your due date is that calculating from your ovulation and just calculating 38 weeks is actually much more accurate. And for example, me, here you go. So I'd been charting my cycle prior to getting pregnant, which means that every morning I took my temperature before getting up. And I also charted my vaginal secretions. I was able to find out that my actual ovulation happened at day 28 of my cycle. So instead of being on day 14, it was day 28, which is exactly 14 days later. So when I went to the first prenatal visit, my midwife asked me, so when was the first day of your last menstrual cycle? I told her, and then she had her little round calculation thing and blah blah blah. Okay, so your due date is July 28th. And I told her, I don't think it is. I think my due date is August 10th. And here's why. And I showed her the charts, and because I could prove all these things, she was like, fine, sure, we'll write that down as your due date being August 10th. So now it's just going to be a question of waiting many months, and we'll find out. I guess so if you follow this to the end and until I birth this baby, we'll see if I'm talking shit or I know what I'm talking about. But then, besides this, there's another factor that is completely out of our control, and that is baby itself, baby him or herself. We have these nice sophisticated calculations and theories and systems to calculate when the baby is supposed to come, but the truth is, every baby kind of decides. There's still like debate about, is it the mom's body who starts the laboring process, or is it baby that releases a hormone that tells the body to go into labor? I don't know. But one thing I do know is that as the baby is forming, one thing that's critical for the baby to be able to come out of the mom and be able to survive on its own is that it needs to breathe. So the whole respiratory system needs to be fully developed, and some of the last tweaking of that system happens in the last week or the last days. And so if you induce labor before the baby's actually ready and fully developed and the respiratory system is fully developed, then you're kind of compromising the baby and its ability to breathe correctly on its own. Without it, I mean, it's already, I think, painful for the baby because it's the first time that air is going through those passages. And so, but it doesn't have to be more painful than it already is going to be. So that's why your due date, basically, yes, it's an estimation, and it gives you a good ballpark of when your baby will come, but I truly believe that the medical world puts way too much stress on that date that is given, using an estimation system. Because even when you get to 40 weeks or 41 weeks, and there's a whole bunch, you'll learn, there's a whole bunch of things that you can do to naturally induce labor if the baby's not coming and you're getting tired of being pregnant or whatever it is. So there are all these things that you can do. And yes, to some extent it can help, but your body's going to go in labor when your body is ready to go in labor, and your body's going to go in labor when your baby is ready to be birthed. So, of course, the medical world has been able to find something that they can just inject into women that will, no matter what, ready or not, this is happening now. But for the baby's sake, let them come when they're ready. Okay, that being said, obviously, there are some situations, of course we have to say this because there's always people that are going to be picky about this, about the words you use. So there are situations where, yes, it can be problematic and dangerous to the baby and or to the mother to wait too long.